those who haven't met, my name is Stephen H. Collison Jr. I have the privilege of serving as president of this university. I want to extend warm greetings to all of you here in person and to those joining us online. Thank you for being a part of this special occasion. Tonight, we gather to pay tribute to the late David A. Stringham, Dean of the College of Music, Theater, and Dance. To many here at our university, Dr. Stringham was more than a colleague and a leader. He was a friend, a mentor, and a teacher. He served this university with passion, integrity, and unwavering dedication. His contributions enriched our university and touched many lives. So it is only fitting that we pause to honor his remarkable legacy. I would like to recognize Dr. Stringham's family who are with us this evening. His wife, Monica, she's back here, and 3 sons, Vaughn, Wesley, and Garrett. His brother Tim is also here with us. We are deeply grateful for your presence at this celebration of David's life and work. Once again, welcome to everyone. Thanks for being here and for the support that you have shown in making this a meaningful tribute. At this time, I will invite Dr. Julie Horwitz, Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs, to preside over this program. Thank you.
Thank you, President Collison. I'd like to invite everyone, or thank everyone for coming tonight on such a cold night to remember such a warm person. We have a number of musical selections tonight that were chosen specifically because they were the kinds of things that Dave liked. And many thanks to Monica for helping us choose those. The first is the Fredonia Choir that's led by Dr. Vernon Huff with Professor Ife Chen on piano. Dean Andy Carfa to join us on the stage. Andy is speaking on behalf of the Provost Council that worked with Dave, but also the friends that worked with Dave.
Good evening. I'm not even going to be able to start. This is not good. First off, I'm really honored to have been given the opportunity to share some of my own observations, but also some stories that have been shared with me from members of the Provost Council. For those not in the know, Provost Council includes the Provost, our Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs, the Deans, our Director of the Library, and Director of Curriculum and General Education. So we meet at least once a week, and frequently, given circumstances that the campus faces, we've been meeting quite often more than once a week. And I say that in part because one of my biggest regrets is not getting to know David more completely. I had all of those exposures, and I missed out. I was fortunate. Many of us traveled to Hamburg to join family, friends, and colleagues to celebrate his life. And so I got to learn more about him that way. And what was particularly interesting to me was the stories provided by his brothers. To hear about the young Dave, the growing up Dave. And I don't think I fully appreciated at the time, but he was clearly, he had a little bit of mischievousness in him, to say the least. And what that did, though, is it gave me an opportunity to think of Dave in a different way. So, I've gone back through my memories, which are poor, but I have some. And I see him now in a slightly different lens. To give you some context, when we have Provost Council meeting, Dave was probably one of the quietest members of that group. We were probably in competition for that spot. But it wasn't that he wasn't engaged. It wasn't that he wasn't paying attention. I think he's one of those people that was ready to speak when he had something to offer, right, that had some impact. And honestly, I can't think of a time when he said something and thought, what? Or was he listening? It was always insightful. It was always a different angle on something that the rest of us hadn't considered. But there was another piece to it. And that is, most of the time when he contributed, it always was at least tinged with his unique and dry or dry-ish sense of humor. There's always that grin. And then there was this glint in his eye. And what I'm realizing is that growing up, Dave never got fully grown up, right? That mischievousness was still in there, and he shared it with us pretty frequently. It was often subtle, but it was always there. And I want to stress something too. Oops, sorry. Dave's humor was never, that I can recall, at the expense of anybody else. We had a lot of closed-door meetings. And, we vent on occasion, right? There's a lot of stuff going on, there's stress. He never said anything negative about somebody else. And given the circumstances and given the meetings, that's remarkable. It says a lot about his character. And I think that's consistent. So one of the themes, other than being mischievous, from what I learned up in Hamburg, and what I've of course experienced in interacting with him, was that and I think his youngest son captured this the best. And I'm not doing it nearly as well, so it's not, I don't have his eloquence. But he said something to the effect of, my dad was always nice to people, even if they weren't nice to him. And again, that's character. That's pretty impressive. And as I said, I've asked my colleagues to share a couple of stories that they thought would capture Dave as they knew him. And not only was he kind and really smart, but he almost always put others first. Sometimes before his own interests, or often before his own interests. So one story, one of our colleagues shared that she was in 2 meetings with him and others where people were meeting about difficult topics and involved people who were very passionate about their work. And for those of you familiar with higher ed campuses, there's no shortage of people that are passionate about their work. But because of the difficulties of these conversations, in both cases, somebody began to cry out of sadness and out of frustration. And on both occasions, Dave immediately pulled out a pack of Kleenex and offered them up. And in their words, it was a quick, silent gesture that was truly so emblematic of who Dave was. And their words are empathetic, supportive, and a partner in the struggles we have been facing on our campus. Now, we could use a whole lot more of that on our campus, but we could also use a whole lot more of that just about everywhere right now. Another colleague shared that she was consistently impressed and touched with how much time and energy he gave to supporting and participating in projects that people were involved in, even if it meant stepping well outside of his comfort zone. In this case, it was his participation in the Double Read Holiday Read-Through. Get it? Read-through? No. Music humor, I guess. But the key here is that's, double reeds are particularly unique instruments, I think it's safe to say. And so this was, again, well outside his comfort zone, but that was never a concern for him. He did what he felt he had to do to be supportive, to be there again for others. That was Dave. One last thing that was shared with me this morning, and I think many of you know this, Dave very much believed in making music accessible. And I don't think that's a terribly uncommon thing amongst the music ed folks. They tend to be, well, I was going to say fanatical, but somebody told me that aggressively helpful was a better way to go. And when I say aggressively helpful, it's all in good ways, Jill. So, but this person really stressed that, he understood that not all of us have the same opportunities. Right? That there are families that can't afford an instrument. Okay, can't afford an instrument. They can't afford the rental of an instrument. They're certainly not going to be able to afford the lessons to necessarily prepare themselves to get into certain programs. He didn't want those sorts of things to be barriers. I can remember my own. It was the ugliest cornet you've ever seen. I certainly came from, I don't know how many hands that passed through, but it got me through. But anyhow, so again, that was Dave, putting others first. Now, I'm going to admit something. One thing I learned when I went up to Hamburg was that, yes, he sported one of the finest hairstyles you can imagine. I'm just saying. And yes, he pulled it off better than I did. But there was a dark side to Dave, and I'm not sure I should share this with his family right in front, but I learned this from his brother, and that is he apparently fell into the wrong crowd and somehow became a Cleveland baseball fan. Now, it could be worse. It's not like he was a Yankees fan, because I don't know how that happens. But I'm sharing this in part because it shows the resilience of his family, because his brother understood the importance of not allowing that to taint the family name, and did the only thing you can do in those situations. I'm a Michigander, by the way, so he became a Detroit Tigers fan. So that was the family, I think, coming together, and even in his darkest moments, they found ways to make it okay. But in closing, I just want to say, go back to where I started. I missed my chance to get to know more completely a really smart, a really great, a really kind guy. And I suspect that there's more than a few of you in this room that feel the same way I do. And I know this is somewhat cliche, but he was simply taken away too soon. Thank you.
Dr. Christian Bernard's been asked to say a few words. Dr. Bernard is the chair of music education and music therapy, but more importantly has known Dave for a very long time.
Yes, I met Dr. Stringham in 2010, and it was actually part of work. I was at PMEA, Pennsylvania Music Educators Association. The conference was being held in Pittsburgh that year, and Professor Kepke and I had been asked to go down to represent Fredonia, to sit in the exhibit hall and recruit with our booth. And up walks a young Dr. David Stringham. And he says, "I know you don't know me, but I know you. I know the School of Music at Fredonia, and I know how stellar it is. Your faculty, your students, your programs, everything about Fredonia is remarkable." And so he further explained that he's from Western New York, that he had gone to Pembroke High School, and that he had seriously considered Fredonia for his own education. He was so engaging and so interested in Fredonia. I kept talking to him and learned that we had even more in common. He had just finished his PhD at Eastman. He was in his first or second year at James Madison University, assistant professor of music education, and we were both instrumental music teacher educators, very similar research interests, and I kept seeing him at conferences around the country. And pretty soon we realized, well, we should do some projects together. So we completed several research projects together. We ended up co-editing a book for GIA Press in Chicago, and throughout all of these interactions, Dave was always kind, humble, and just the most wonderful human being. In that book project, he repeatedly said, "You know, it's not that important that my name be on this. It's not that important that I'm highlighted here. What about the students at James Madison, the students at Fredonia, the K-12 teachers around the country who are so giving of their time and their energy and their expertise?" As we've already heard from Dean Carfa, he was just always putting other people first. And just a pleasure to work with in every single way. I also found him to be a very curious learner, a voracious reader. I mean, just amazing the number of books he could go through, and always considering new possibilities, a kind of what-if attitude. And so it wasn't surprising that I learned he was gradually getting into administration at James Madison. He was getting into cutting-edge programs, progressive leadership, and while he always had great respect for tradition, tremendous respect for tradition, he always wanted to know, what if? What else could we do? And that leadership, that sense of style, I was so excited when I learned that he was coming to Fredonia. I had encouraged him to apply for our job. I had nothing to do with the search. I was not on the search committee, but I was so excited when I learned that he had been selected and accepted the offer to come to Fredonia as our dean. Around that same time, I was tapped as a department chair, so I had the privilege of working with him, again, on a weekly basis. I also saw him around Mason Hall all the time, like the rest of you. He seemed to, sorry to his family, he seemed to be here all the time, right? But I learned up in Hamburg that he was also a tremendous father and husband and brother. And none of that is surprising to me. Just a wonderful human being. While he was very deeply focused on helping to build our new College of Music, Theater, and Dance, something that we're very excited about, he was also, as Dr. Carfa said, his sense of humor was wonderful, and he liked talking about other subjects like baseball. So not only Major League Baseball, but he also had an interest in minor league baseball. He was known to go to Buffalo Bison's games, to Rochester Red Wings games. And so this past summer, I just happened to be reading a book about minor league baseball. This particular one is called Small Town Baseball in America. Small Town Baseball in America, Will Bardenwerper. And the premise of the book is that the major leagues in some ways have gotten too big. That the stars, the superstars, are getting paid way too much money, and the big market teams are winning all the games. And so the author said, what about the small towns? What about those that have lost their minor league teams, that now are collegiate teams? And one of those, and the focus of the book, Batavia, New York. The Batavia Muck Dogs. And even the author makes fun of that name. Who names their team the Muck Dogs? He did explain. I won't give a spoiler alert, you'll have to read it yourself. Small town baseball in America, Batavia, New York, and I had already thought, minor league baseball, I need to pass this book along to Dave. And then when I realized all of the roots in Batavia, so I showed the book to him at the end of summer, and he was skimming through and he said, minor league baseball in Batavia. I hope I'm getting this right. He said a quarter of a mile away from the stadium. So while he was working on his graduate work at Eastman, he said Monica and I lived about a quarter of a mile away from the Batavia Muck Dog Stadium. We would go to some games, and even better, we would get free fireworks shows, right? Friday evenings, step out in the yard, and there they are after the game. It does not surprise me that Dave Stringham would be interested in minor league baseball. He always rooted for underdogs. Tireless advocate for equity, access, inclusion in both music and education, that every single human being deserves a chance. Every single human being deserves a great education and music making, not just sitting in an audience listening to a performer on stage, but that every single human being has the biological capacity and need to make music and to be educated well. I am so very grateful for having known Dr. David Stringham as a musician, as a teacher, as a leader, and most importantly, as a fantastic human being.
Thank you, Dr. Bernard. Our second music selection is by Professor David Rose today.
Before I play, I thought I would share a few things, offer full resonance with what my colleagues Andy and Christian have said. My wife and I were honored to go to the ceremony in Hamburg a couple weeks ago. And after the ceremony was done, I spoke with some of my colleagues in the music building. And we all felt so similar to what you said, Andy. We had such a small 2-year window into Dave, and that window was perhaps necessarily opened maybe 2 inches. When we looked through it, we would see a guy who led faculty meetings and who we'd sit across from a table with, making requests, asking permission for things, maybe apologizing for the odd thing. And when we went to the service, we were immediately confronted with the full picture that is Dave. So there were pictures on the wall of Dave as a child, of course. Obviously, he was a son, and that struck us all with full force. He was a brother, a father, a husband, and a friend. And we heard all of these things spoken to with such emotional force by his family and friends. So it was really quite something. The window slid open quite a bit more for all of us. My wife and I were struck mostly by learning that David was a child of God, and that on earth he walked with God, and now, of course, walks with God in ways we can only kind of dream about. And this was offered with such force and power at the ceremony. Of course, the window metaphor breaks down because if you start talking about the eternal, the divine, little metaphors like that kind of break. There's no window quite big enough to describe such a thing. So we left that event feeling very nourished and rich and sad, of course. And here we are, again, back at the Fredonia School of Music, and I was afraid the window would close a little bit again. You know, we'd only have two-inch view of all of who Dave was. So I thought it would be nice to bring something back from that ceremony that was clearly a big part of his life. And you know, as we lurch from crisis to crisis, and maybe our window narrows, you know, there's more on heaven and earth than our bottom line and perfecting our E-flat scales for our juries and all that. So a hymn was chosen by the Stringhams for Dave's service, which is a great, great hymn. It was sung at my wedding, my wife and my wedding, so it's very dear to us too. This hymn is 102 years old, and it's been leaned on heavily by our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. And for all that leaning, its power and potency is not diminished. It's only grown, in part because it speaks to eternal and divine truths. The viola, which I'll play for you, all of its attributes and wonders, but it's a wordless instrument. It will never speak. So I'll share with you the words of this hymn, which are kind of too beautiful to remain unsaid. It goes like this. Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with you. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thy forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning new mercies I see, and all I have needed thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Professor Rose, I ask Dr. Stephen Schuin to come to the podium and share his recollections.
Hard to know what to say after that. Such beauty. Well, I knew Dave when I had black hair and he had hair. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak today on behalf of our dear friend, Dave Stringham. To go back a few years now, as an undergraduate student at Eastman, Dave observed at Williamsville East, where I taught. When Dave began his master's degree, Dick Gruno, the chair of music education at Eastman, called me and asked if Dave could do a practicum at East, a one-day-a-week student teaching experience for the year where Dave could do hands-on experimentation and research with the students. I jumped at it. Dave Stringham every Friday? I was going to have Fridays off for a whole year. You see, Dave was somewhat of a child prodigy. He became the pianist for his high school jazz ensemble when he was 8 years old. His feet couldn't touch the ground. A magnificent pianist. He had a full scholarship to Eastman, I'm quite sure, and that's not an easy thing to do. He was a brilliant musician. So Dave came over to Williamsville East every Friday and we became fast friends. Our philosophies meshed. We both believed strongly that students could achieve excellence in performance and develop oral and theoretical skills so that they could become creative musicians as well. Early on that year, he asked if he could take the jazz ensemble rehearsal. He had a Native American head chart that he wanted to share with the students. It was Friday. I said, great, I'll run some errands and stop in at the end of the rehearsal and see how it went. When I came back with a cup of coffee, the jazz ensemble was wailing on multiple parts. The rhythm section was crushing the hits and changes, and the excitement in the room was electric. And understand, no one was looking at music. Dave's in the middle of the band, looks up at me and gives me that little nod, as if this was as common as tea time in London. I knew at that moment that Dave was not only a brilliant musician, but also he was going to be an amazing educator. When the legendary Jeff Richter retired from Williamsville North, I was on the selection committee. The interview was musically challenging. We took it way too extreme. Dave nailed everything, everything. In Williamsville, final candidates perform a piece on their major and secondary instrument. Dave was an outstanding saxophonist also. So he started with that. Then he sat at the piano and played a Bach prelude and fugue by ear. He never saw the music. The performance was mesmerizing. You see, Dave could hear anything, not just pitches, chord changes, and rhythms. I was playing piano at a rehearsal for our annual Poetry, Music, Art, and Dance celebration for one of the many student compositions. Dave was teaching at North High School by then, and he was there too because he was performing several student pieces. After I played a piece, Dave came over to me, beaming with that huge smile of his, and he says, I'd recognize that Steve Schuin piano touch anywhere. There was love in his eyes. I've thought about that moment 100 times since. Dave could hear me through my piano touch. He knew me through my sound. Dave heard us all. He heard our music. He heard our words. He heard our joy and he heard our sadness. His insight and empathy were uncommon. He had the ability to understand because he listened and he heard. He heard us and he celebrated us. If someone received recognition, Dave championed it. When someone else had a great performance, Dave was all over it with praise. He was constantly supporting my compositions. I'm a composer. Now I'm a full-time composer. Before I was a part-time composer and a teacher. So he wanted to help me get my music performed everywhere. So if you want to carry on Dave's legacy, I may have a piece for each and every one of you. Actually, that was just Dave, being Dave, promoting someone else. Dave was our champion, and his tent was large. There was a space in his tent for everyone. His tent was a place where we all received his support. He was a solution seeker. He looked at every challenge with the same question, which was, how can we make this better? He truly was a man with a giant heart. I played piano at his wedding to his lovely bride, Monica. Dave beamed the entire ceremony. He was a kind husband and a wonderful father. And he loved it here in Fredonia. He thought the world of you all. His tent was wide open here, and he lavished praise on each and every one of you whenever we spoke. He believed in what was happening here in Fredonia, still balancing his belief that all students can achieve excellence and be creative musicians. He had no time for turf wars. He wanted to make things better for all, especially the students. Dave was a treasure. Losing him at such a young age is painful. Perhaps the way we can best honor our dear friend's life is to make our own tents bigger and more inclusive, to role model and continue to promote both excellence and creativity, to genuinely celebrate our students, celebrate our colleagues, and celebrate our administrators, to be kind to each other, to be solution seekers, and mostly to increase our ability to hear each other. God bless you, Dave. We love you. We miss you.
I'd like to invite one of our students to the stage, Maze Drum. Maze is graduating in spring with a bachelor's in music composition.
I'm incredibly grateful to get to speak alongside such fantastic public speakers and stellar friends of Dean Stringham. Everything that has been said already is incredibly moving, and I'm focusing very hard on not crying before I have to speak. So, I'm Maze. I'm a senior double major in jazz and music composition. I didn't know Dean Stringham very well, so take that as a caveat for everything that I'm about to say. But I think that the best way to explain who Dean Stringham was to the students of Mason Hall is to illustrate the way that he got through to any one particular student. So myself, I was a troublemaker as a kid, and depending on who you ask, I still am, which is whatever. Commonly and consequentially led to, a scolding from a teacher or a big fat visit to the principal's office. Some were kind and cut my feisty childhood self possibly too much slack. Some reasonably let me have it. And a special few were retrospectively too mean to a kid whose only sin was being a little dumb. I'd say that anything in the middle group there was warranted. This continued in various degrees until I graduated high school, and the outcome of that was an early college maze, the near illiterate jazz pianist with a penchant for showing up 30 minutes late to a 50-minute class, and a deep-rooted distrust of any sort of administrator. So now, I don't remember the first time that I learned who Dean Stringham was. The early stuff is kind of a haze of sequential thoughts like, man, that bald guy sure smiles a lot. He seems really friendly. And then, oh, there's a new dean. I wonder who that is. And then, no way that's the dean of the School of Music. Because in my mind, a dean or a principal or administrator was an adversary, first and foremost. Somebody to tell you no or talk down to you or make you feel small. But he wasn't like that at all. He learned my name once and remembered it from then on. He complimented my colorful socks after a jazz concert. We learned we both live in Hamburg, and had sort of a silly connection because of that. And as you all know now, Hamburg is only 40 minutes away from Fredonia, so it's kind of funny that I was like, wow, the dean's from Hamburg. It's like, there's not that many places that I guess he could also live. But meeting fellow students that grew up and lived in bigger and better places like the fabled New York City, or came from musical lineages, or lived lives of much harder knocks, and they could all run circles around me, it made me feel really out of place when I got here. I felt particularly average in origin with a below average skill set, especially because I had no classical training and could barely read sheet music. But to have a silly kinship with the guy running the school because of where we lived, and for him to take such an interest in the jazz department, and to learn that he was a jazz pianist too, it made me feel much more at home very quickly. I didn't really expect an administrator to make me feel so seen. Not only did he do that, he did that without really trying. He wasn't trying to make me feel better, he was just being genuine. All care was real. I watched him give an Oscar presentation. I was there for a class, and lo and behold, one of the other presenters was Dr. Stringham. He was talking about education. I always thought that I wasn't patient enough, and I was a little too moody to be an educator, and I was more drawn to composition and jazz and whatnot, and I thought that that was a separate thing. But the way that he talked about how important and all-encompassing and not isolated education was, had everybody on the edge of their seat, whether they were walking past the library or sitting there because they were in a class that had to be there. Everybody was just like so intent on watching it, myself included. He said something that stuck with me too, along the lines of music educators opting out of composition or improvisation because they're not very good at that, or don't do a lot of it, is a disservice to the students. That would be like a math teacher saying, no, we're just gonna skip algebra, I'm not very good at that, I don't do a lot of it. I'd never heard a single teacher talk in such an all-encompassing way about music education before. It was always kind of its own solitary thing. Everything was important and connected to him. He had a way of making that known and felt to anybody that he interacted with. All degrees, all programs, all instruments and genres are entwined. No one can exist without the others. In my experience, albeit limited and biased, I'd never before seen an administrator try so hard to hold people together above all else. During a time of such unrest in all of higher education, with program cuts and lacks of funding, at least within the School of Music, Stringham made everyone, regardless of who they were or what they did, feel important and valued. As a student and as someone who roams Mason Hall quite frequently, I know how much that meant. See, I didn't know Dean Stringham very well, but he made me feel like I did. Every relationship he had, no matter the kind or history or brevity of meeting, he treated with warmth, familiarity, and pure, unadulterated kindness. In my human opinion, Dean Stringham treated other people the way that everyone should aspire to treat other people. I'll close with my favorite memory with Dean Stringham. It's a good story. It's short. It's pretty funny, though. This goes with Dr. Carafa's statement of him being aggressively helpful. So I had stopped home to grab a bite to eat before the jazz orchestra rehearsal. And I was, making a quesadilla or something, and then I blinked, and it was 10:02. I was like, uh-oh, so I run downstairs, and it's pouring rain, and my car's in the 15-minute spot, and the hazards have been on for 45 minutes, and the battery is gone. So I'm like, awesome, sweet. So I get on the bus, I rush to class, I'm just trying to get there on time. I'm drenched, oh my goodness, from head to toe. And I walk in, and I'm just a total mess, and I see Dean Stringham, and he's like, hey, Amaze, how's it going? And I'm like, hi, Dean Stringham, really bad, thank you for asking. And he stops me, and he's like, whoa, what's going on? Well, tell me. And so I'm stuttering out this sob story, and he's like, whoa, have you called UP yet? And I'm like, no, I have rehearsal in a second. He takes out his phone, and he's like, what's your license plate? And I'm like, what? And he's like, what's your license plate? I'm like, you don't have to do that. And he's like, he dials the number, he has it loaded up on his phone, and he clicks it, so I have to answer him. He's like, what's the license plate? And I'm like, I don't remember. And he's like, he's like, that's okay, I'll go out and check. And so he like moves to run outside. He's in a full suit. It is pouring outside. And I'm like, wait, stop. It's, first of all, it's in front of the townhouses. Second of all, you don't have a rain jacket and you're wearing a very nice set of dress clothes. And I don't want you to, like, I don't know what you're thinking right now. And he's like, oh, okay, that's fine. We'll make and model. And I'm like, a teal Honda CR-V. It has a bunch of bumper stickers on it. He's like, perfect, great. Go to rehearsal, have a good one. And I'm like, he had no reason at all to do that. He could have been like, oh man, that sucks that your car died. But instead, he was ready to run out into the pouring rain in very nice clothes for just some random student in Mason Hall. And he was ready to do that for each and every one of us. I think that that's a really nice little picture of the kind of person that Stringham was. And I know that we're all gonna miss him very much, and we already do. I'm grateful for the time, albeit limited, that I got to know him, and I'm grateful that he had such an incredible impact on this school that I care a lot about. Thank you.
Our next musical selection is by another student, Lucas West.
Bags last night, pre-flight, 0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then. I miss the earth so much, I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space on such a timeless flight. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me around again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh, no, 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 I'm a rocket man. Rocket man, burning up his fuels up here alone. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me around again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. kids. In fact, it's cold as hell. And there's no one there to raise them if you did. And all this science I don't understand. It's just my job 5 days a week. Rocket Man, oh Rocket Man. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me around again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a Rocket Man. I think it's gonna be a long, long time. I think it's gonna be a long, long time. I think it's gonna be a long, long time. I think it's gonna be a long, long time. It's gonna be a long, long time. Gonna be a long, long time.
I invite President Collison to the podium.
Let me say thanks to everyone who has participated today in honoring You know, I understand the separation of church and state. And so I'm going to ask you to indulge me because I also want to acknowledge that David was a Christian. And that guided the way he interacted with people and the way he went about his work. So, for those who share his faith, in times like these, you are looking for some assurance. You are seeking understanding. One of the speakers said he was taken away too soon. That is true. That's how I feel. I've struggled. In fact, from the moment I heard that he was in a hospital, my struggles started to try to understand. And I think this campus has been shaken by this. And so let me dig something from David's faith, Christianity, to assure everyone who is struggling with this. In the Old Testament, in the book of Psalms, there is an assurance that says, weeping may last all night, but joy comes in the morning. Then in the New Testament, in the Sermon of the Mount, which is found in the book of Matthew, it was Jesus who said, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." So if you share that faith, then I hope you don't feel hopeless. That is something that you can take. That's what I'm taking out of this experience. And so at this time, I would do what I wanted to share with the campus and everyone who is listening here tonight. I'm hoping I can get through this. This is a resolution honoring the late Dr. David A. Stringham, Dean of the College of Music, Theater, and Dance. Whereas Dr. David Stringham joined SUNY Fredonia in May 2023 as the Dean of the School of Music, chosen for his exceptional communication skills, leadership in organization change, deep commitment to expanding student access and success through the excellent learning opportunities provided by the School of Music, and whereas working collaboratively with colleagues across the campus and in the community, he embraced every opportunity to build on Fredonia's rich legacy in music and music education. And whereas Dean Stringham worked tirelessly to strengthen enrollment, and whereas his leadership brought meaningful organization change aligning the school's structure with the structure of colleges on campus, successfully integrating the Department of Theater and Dance and elevating the school status to that of a college, the College of Music, Theater and Dance. And whereas he championed new academic programs, including a BA in Music Studies and the Music's Bachelor's in Jazz Studies, designed to attract a broader and more diverse population of music students. And whereas, under his leadership, the School of Music received full reaccreditation from the National Association of Schools of Music, and whereas Dean Stringham was a tireless advocate and fundraiser, building close relationships with donors and securing approximately $1.5 million in new gifts during his tenure, demonstrating his ability to inspire support for students and programs. And whereas his commitment, insight, and lasting impact on the university community constitute a remarkable legacy. And whereas he consistently demonstrated thoughtfulness, kindness, and grace in every interaction, leaving an indelible impression on colleagues and friends. And whereas the president of the State University of New York at Fredonia, with the full endorsement of the president's cabinet, and after discussing his intentions with the executive committee of the University Senate, now, therefore, be it resolved that the State University of New York at Fredonia hereby confers the State University of New York at Fredonia hereby confers posthumously upon David Stringham the distinguished title of Professor and Dean Emeritus, and that this honor be permanently recorded as part of his exemplary contributions to this university. Signed by me as president, December 9, 2025. I do have this resolution in a plaque, and I'm going to invite, I got two things I want to share with the family. The first one is the resolution, and the second one, when we announced the passing of Dr. Stringham, we lowered this Fredonia flag to fly half-staff for 2 weeks on the campus. I have that flag with me that I will present to his family. So, Monica and your sons and your team, if you don't mind, will you please come to the stage? This is a plaque with the resolution for David. It will become part of his permanent record here at his university forever. This is a flag that flew half-staff upon the passing of Dean Stringham. I'd like to present this to his family.
Hi, I'm Monica. I just wanted to say a few things. First of all, thank you so much for coming to celebrate Dave. Thank you for your stories. Thank you for your memories. Thank you for your participation in the things that he really championed. To faculty and staff, I want to say thank you so much for your generosity with the days that you donated to our family. It was really, really loving and very helpful to us during that time, so thank you. Students, thank you so much for the Post-its that you have put on his door. Thanks for just taking the time to pause and be in the moment and reflect and mourn a little bit. Our society is not one that likes to slow down and take time, but thank you for doing that. To the Fredonia community, Dave invested himself in music education because he believed that every human, every person that walked this earth had a God-given ability to engage with music. And he wanted to do all that he could to support, encourage, and develop that natural ability in people. He was personally passionate about engaging with music, as you've all heard and probably learned yourself. And he was a lifelong learner. His interests were quite vast, and he was, of course, very well read. We have right now, by his leather recliner that he got last year, like 12 different books on the bookshelf right behind him with bookmarks in every one of them. So yes, he was reading all 12 at the same time. And he could talk to anyone about any musical entry point they had. So I want to leave you with a little bit of encouragement on that note, to encourage you too to continue to engage and develop your God-given musical ability. No matter how great or how small you think that is, he would be happy to know that you were exercising it. And he'd of course have a follow-up question for you to consider as you thought about the next step. So thank you so much.
Our last musical selection tonight is performed by Dr. Emily Schad, Nate Hubbard, Kieran Hanlon, and a student, Aiden Beeger. ceremony tonight, we invite you to come to the lobby outside of Marble Theater on behalf of the president for a reception where we can continue our stories and our laughter and our crying and share some memories. Thank you so much for coming.